Clarence Thomas. Now, you got your victory with overturning Roe v. Wade. But I think that you're choosing to want to overturn landmark rulings that legalize contraception and same-sex marriage. I think you're reaching, and it seems like you're picking on certain groups of people. Hello everyone. I'm back. Like I said, I will come back with another article. I want to take the time out and thank the people that's been listening to my commentary uploads that I posted this week, ranging from the documentary, my review on the Amazing Disgrace documentary, Wendy Williams, Mary J. Blige, Kwame Brown, Kimberly Elise, R. Kelly, both R. Kelly uploads, Black Ink Crew Caesar, Little Kim. A lot of people you are interested in Little Kim upload. The one that I did about CNN, wrongfully crediting Jamaicans for creating hip-hop and other art forms of Black music. And last but not least, the story about the Texas man and his fascination with horses. Yeah, I already have about 90 views on that. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time out to listen. It really means a lot. So this is the article that I mentioned on Wednesday that I was going to talk about on Friday. But because I was so busy doing a lot of stuff that I decided, to talk about R. Kelly and do another upload about a reality show that I just started watching. However, I didn't get the chance to actually do what I was supposed to do. So I realized it that night. And I said, tomorrow I'm going to do it. So this comes from NBC News. And it reads, Thomas wants the Supreme Court to overturn landmark rulings that legalizes contraceptions and same-sex marriage. In a concurrent opinion to the Supreme Court's ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade, the conservative jurist called out the court to overrule a trio of watershed civil rights writings. We have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents. How possible is Thomas' request to evaluate contraception, same-sex marriage cases? By Adam Edelman. The Supreme Court must revisit and overrule past landmark decisions that legalize the right to obtain contraception, the right to same-sex intimacy, and the right to same-sex marriage. Conservative Justice Clarence Thomas wrote Friday. Thomas, in a concurrent opinion to the court's precedent breaking decision, overturning Roe v. Wade and wiping out constitutional protections for abortion rights, said that he would do away with the doctrine of substantive due process and explicitly called on the court to overrule the watershed civil rights rulings in Griswold v. Connecticut, which I learned about in college, Lawrence v. Texas, which I learned about in Jet Magazine in 1999 and 2000, and I'm going to talk about that, and Obergefell versus Hodge. Griswold was a 1965 Supreme Court decision that established the right for married couples to buy and use contraceptives. It became the basis for the right to contraception for all couples a few years later. Lawrence was a 2003 Supreme Court decision that established the right for consenting adults to engage in same-sex intimacy. Obergefell was a 2015 Supreme Court decision to establish the right for same-sex couples to be married. The legal reasoning in all three monumental decisions, as well in the two decisions, Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that had prior to last Friday, established a legal right to abortion care, relied heavily on the doctrine of substantive due process. As I have previously explained, substantive due process is an oxymoron that lacks any basis in the Constitution, he wrote. He later called it a legal fiction that is particularly dangerous. Substantive due process is a term in constitutional law that essentially allows courts to protect certain rights, even if those rights are not explicitly enumerated in the Constitution. It has been interpreted in many cases to apply to matters relating to the right to intimacy, including over matters like love. It has been interpreted in many cases to apply to matters relating to the right to privacy, including over matters like love, intimacy, and sex, which is not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution. Conservative jurists have long dismissed the legal reasoning that supported the interpretation of substantive due process. And Thomas, a member of the bench's conservative wing, made that clear in his writings in Friday's decision. In future cases, we would reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell, because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous. We have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents, Thomas wrote. And because the court, in its rulings Friday, drew heavily on that very idea that substantive due process is not in the Constitution, Thomas concluded that almost all other precedents that relied on the doctrine should be overturned. I join the opinion of the court because it correctly holds that there is no constitutional right to abortion. Respondent invoke one source for the right. The 14th Amendment's guarantee that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The court well explains why. Under our substantive due process precedents, the purported right to abortion is not a form of liberty protected by the Due Process Clause. Such a right is neither deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition, nor implicit in the concept of ordered liberty, he wrote. Thomas then went even further, writing that the court, after overruling those particular decisions, should eliminate substantive due process altogether. In future cases, we should follow the text of the Constitution, which sets forth certain substantive rights that cannot be taken away, and adds beyond that a right to due process when life, liberty, or property is to be taken away, he wrote. Substantive due process conflicts with that textual command and has harmed our country in many ways. Accordingly, he added, we should eliminate it from our jurisprudence, oh Lord, at the earliest opportunity. Thomas, who joined the court in 1991, I remember that vividly, as the only second black justice in Supreme Court history, dissented in both the Lawrence and Obergefell decisions, which means that he dissented. He wasn't really agreeing with that. In Friday's opinion, Thomas made no mention of Loving v. Virginia, the landmark 1967 ruling by the Supreme Court that struck down laws prohibiting interracial marriage. That decision relied in part on the substantive due process doctrine and was cited in several subsequent decisions that did as well, including Obergefell in 2015. But Thomas, whose wife is white, meaning their interracial marriage could have been deemed illegal in certain states had the court not ruled the way it did in Loving, did not mention the 1967 decision as one that should be revisited. Wink, wink. In their own opinions, Justice Samuel Alito and Brett Kavanaugh both referred to Loving, writing that it should not be revisited despite its reliance on substantive due process. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh my God, the hypocriticalness of this all. President Joe Biden, speaking to the nation following the ruling Friday afternoon, specifically addressed Thomas's analysis, saying it paves an extreme and dangerous path that the court is now taking us on. I've warned about how this decision risks a broader right to privacy for everyone, Biden said. That's because Roe recognized the fundamental right to privacy and has served as a basis for so many more rights that we've come to take for granted. that are ingrained in the fabric of this country. The right to make the best decisions for your health. The right to use birth control. A married couple's right in the privacy of their bedroom, for God's sake. The right to marry the person you love. Just as Thomas said as much today, he explicitly called to reconsider the right of marriage equality. The right of couples to make their choices on contraception. Biden added. Thomas's opinion also attracted the ire of prominent civil rights groups such as Jim Obergefell, the plaintiff in the 2015 decision that Thomas wants the court to overturn. The millions of loving couples who have the right to marriage equality to form their own families do not need Clarence Thomas imposing his individual twisted morality upon them. Obergefell told NBC News in a statement, if you want to see an error in judgment, Clarence Thomas, look in the mirror. Sarah K. Ellis, head of the LGBTQ advocacy group GLAAD, called Thomas' opinion a blaring red alert for the LGBTQ community and for all Americans. We will never go back to the dark days of being shut out of hospital rooms, left off of death certificates, refusing spousal benefits, or any of the other humiliations that took place in the years before Obergefell, Ellis said in a statement. And we definitely will not go back to the pre-Lawrence days of being criminalized just because we are LGBTQ. But that's exactly what Thomas is threatening to do to this country. Ellis added, and I'm going to tell you something. I agree. I got to be honest. As a person who's pro-life, this is the truth. Thomas wants to take us back in time to, let's see, 1965 and 67 and 69. That's right. Because you know why? Because in those times, you could marry somebody of the opposite, I don't want to say opposite race, but a different race and ethnicity, but you still couldn't get an abortion. In certain places, it was still deemed illegal. You couldn't get to have sex with somebody of the same sex, gender as you, and you definitely couldn't marry somebody of the same sex. Two snaps and a twirl. He wants to take us to 67, 68, 69. Now, see, here's my thing. How come Loving v. Virginia isn't, in the same group? Because the thing is, the states had so many anti-miscegenation laws because they said that a black person and a white person were horrible to get together and have a child and cohabitate. It was wrong. It was unnatural. Except for during slavery, of course. But you see the hypocrisy with these people. And this is the paleoconservatism that I'll be talking about. And I got to do another video on this because this is what's going on. So you had people who were happy with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which I agreed with because here's the thing. You can't basically have me with my taxes pay for, services Planned Parenthood if I'm against abortion. I got to have a say in that. But however, if you're going to have the states, choose that right, how come you're blocking people from going to states trying to get an abortion? Because that's what's being talked about. And why would you say, okay, I'm going to make that state for the states to give that right, but then you're saying I want to take the right of contraception away. So that means that if a person lives in Arkansas and they don't want to have a baby, they can't get an abortion. Okay. But you're even preventing them from using contraceptives, would prevent them from even getting pregnant, which would prevent them from having to decide if they want to get an abortion or not. Make it make sense. And then, I told you I know about Lawrence v. Texas. I'm going to get to that. Then with Lawrence v. Texas, you saying, okay, we want to take that away. We're going to let the states decide about same-sex, intimacy, which means that people want to be able to get arrested for having the right to want to have same-sex marriage. Then you're going to basically, choose, if, you can't get married. We're going to make the states have that. most states will deny that. Oh, and eventually when he leaves the bench, Loving v. Virginia will be overturned, and the big kahuna, Brown v. Board of Ed, because Brown versus Board of Ed was the case that started it all. It's the case that started the civil rights movement. It's the case that birthed the American civil rights movement, which allowed people to say, hey, I have rights too. I may not be black, but I have rights too. You know, I'm a person who is disabled. I'm a person who's a woman. I'm LGBT. You know, listen, my man is white and I want to marry him. You know, like I'm just throwing these things out there. Or, you know, like the right to privacy. You know, like nobody is going to be completely happy with something. And the whole group is not going to be on code. But we have to understand, hey, where is this going? Are you really, really, really concerned about the unborn children? Or is this control from something? Because I'm picking up Handmaid's Tale vibes. And I ain't never seen that show. And I have Hulu. I'm picking up vibes where you don't want anyone to live their life that you do not agree with. Now, so I'm going to talk about Lawrence v. Texas. I remember reading this in the Jet. It made the Jet because it had to do with a black man and a white man that met at a club, and they actually decided to go to the other's home. And what occurs is that they decided to get busy, okay? They decided to get busy. And so this occurred in 98, by the way. So John Geddes Lawrence was an older white man, and he was arrested along with Tyrone Garner, a younger black man, at Lawrence's apartment in Harris County, Texas, which is the home of Beyonce and Destiny's Child. Garner's former boyfriend had called the police, claiming that there was a man with a weapon in the apartment. The sheriff deputies said they found the men engaged in intercourse, and they were charged with a misdemeanor under Texas anti-sodomy law. Both pleaded no contest, and they received a fine. Now, they were assisted by the ACL, the American Civil Rights Organization, Lambda Legal, which specializes in LGBTQ legal rights issues. And what happened was that in 2000, the Texas Court of Appeal ruled that sodomy law was unconstitutional. So then they even went up to the Texas Court of Appeals, and they basically upheld the law, and Lawrence appealed the decision, and then Lawrence agreed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which agreed to hear their case. So they struck down the sodomy law, which was 6-3. And the sentence, of course, was Clarence Thomas, okay? So Clarence Thomas is a hard right-wing conservative, but he's not a conservative in the sense of, you know, like old-fashioned conservatives. Old-fashioned conservatives, like I said, they were more into money, keeping, like, you know, finances, like religion, values, but they weren't really trying to impose their system on other people. But Thomas is a paleo-conservative, and that scares me. Paleo-conservative scares me. And I'm going to do a video about this again, detailing why they scare me. Like, they scare the heebie-jeebies out of me. I can't stand them. But my advice to Thomas, you need to be careful with this, because you're reaching too far, and it's not cool. And I feel as though you're picking on them. I feel that you're picking on everything that is legal, that is how can I say it? That is liberal. And it's not right at this point. And it's just seeming like you're mean. And I don't think it's cool at all. I don't think it's cool. And hopefully, you know, I know a lot of conservatives, because I have really ultra conservatives in my family. They're going to be happy with this if it ever happens. But me, I'm seeing this as us going down a dangerous path to where they'll try to get brown people out of bed. And, I studied that in elementary school. And I don't want nobody touching brown people with an egg, because that overturned Plessy v. Ferguson. And then we'll go back to essentially the slavery days, because that's what these paleos really want. And all you black paleo conservatives, y'all better stop clapping for Roe v. Wade so much, because they're going to come to y'all, and y'all will be the first ones that will be crying over it, because y'all so want to be in the company of white people so bad. A lot of y'all don't know what to do, because y'all don't really like yourselves anyway. And with that being said, it's your homegirl signing off. Thank you so much for listening to this commentary. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Later.